the co-opting of the revolutionary tools like psychedelics, uh, and incorporate it into the world, the spectacle world, the as Neil Postman says, the amusing ourselves to death world. They become tools to kind of like quiet us down and pacify us rather than truly liberate us. And psychedelics in this hyper medicalized, individualized, compartmentalized, commodified, monetized form are thus transformed from catalysts for real radical upheaval of societal norms, breaking down borders and boundaries and societal, cultural, systemic change into mechanisms for just simply maintaining the status quo. Hey everybody, Mike Brancatelli here. I'm going to be making a series of videos that I put up on this YouTube channel. Thank you to everybody who subscribes already. If you like these videos, please subscribe. Please hit the bell notification icon. Please like it, share it, and please comment in the comment section. Leave comments for me, and hopefully also comments that will engage a rich discussion amongst you all viewing. Part of what I want to do with these videos is also create a group that we can dive deeper into the topics discussed here in a private group, and that I can see you, I could hear you, and we can engage in rich discussion. So if you enjoy these videos, please let me know, and I'll keep making more of them. For those of you who are new, I used to host a podcast called Psychedelic from 2016 to 2022. And prior to that, I was on a show called Part of the Problem with Dave Smith, and a great show that's still going on that he hosts with Robbie Bernstein. And these videos will center around a specific topic, and hopefully there'll be a lot of room to discuss more of the nuances and complexities and dive even deeper into what I'm putting forward here. I really see myself more as just a sort of vessel, if you will, to transmit some ideas that I feel called to transmit, and then I would love to sort of like get into an arena and an environment where we can all participate in a larger discussion. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the neutering of psychedelics from counterculture to corporate commodity. It's something that I wrote, and I felt like it's actually more suited for me to just speak about. So this video isn't really going to be like a manicured video essay style. It's really just going to be more of a podcast, more of a conversational, casual speaking about these things. And some of it will be kind of structured, but some of it I'll kind of riff and go off on. So the title of what I wrote is called The Neutering of Psychedelics from Counterculture to Corporate Commodity. And really it stems from how I felt ever since I started taking psychedelics in the very beginning. I felt very disillusioned when I graduated college in 2009, and felt like a lot of the things that I had sort of known to be true in the depths of my soul and in my heart were being validated by the experience I was having in the world. And so it led me to get involved in a lot of different, I actually got a way richer, deeper education on my own than I ever did in public education or college. So I explored a lot of different ideas. I got involved in some activism. I got involved in stand-up comedy, podcasting, and just read and studied a lot, and was influenced by a lot of different people. And then I went on to have my own experiences. And the birth of Mycadelic was really born out of the idea that there's a lot of problems in the world, and I feel that through the psychedelic experience that we could catalyze change to the very foundations of our modern world, of civilization, the structures, institutions, and systems of our world, which I believe are the main causes of a lot of our suffering. And throughout my time with psychedelics, I feel like I sort of got away from that main messaging. um, and the reason why I got away from a lot of that main messaging was because a lot of the healing retreats, a lot of therapy, and a lot of the narrative by the mainstream psychedelic establishment in conjunction with the Western therapeutic model is all about your internal experience. Even Buddhism, it's all about your inner world, your inner experience. Keep going within, find healing. I don't find myself to be healed. I find that I have achieved a great deal of healing, and it's been very helpful. And I've also come to the conclusion that there's still a giant fucking nail in the collective body's toe that we're not ignoring, right? Like if you had a giant nail in your toe, and the whole method of treating that was tending to the blood that's seeping out, and taking painkillers, and all the efforts that circle around it rather than getting the nail out of the toe. uh, you'd still find yourself in a great deal of pain and distress. And that's sort of how I feel. I mean, that's not sort of how I feel, that is how I feel about the current state of the mainstream, hyper individualized, medicalized model of psychedelic healing, as well as Western psychotherapy. Because I quite frankly feel that we are in a time right now where we need radical revolutionary change more than ever. And yet it also feels like it's more elusive. It feels like we keep repeating the same patterns. And something that I was really turned on to early in the beginning of psychedelics was the Timothy Leary revolution of the 60s, if you will. I don't know how actual real it really was or what they were really doing, but the messaging that I got was affirming to me in how I felt, that there's a lot wrong with the world, and it's engineered that way to keep us in this sort of like well manageable, like palliative care treatment facility where no one is really breaking down the barriers and creating appealing alternatives that rival the status quo. Yet we keep trying to sort of, as Einstein says in his famous quote, I believe it's something like, we can't solve our problems with the same thinking that we use to create them. And we find ourselves in this vicious cycle. So that's a lot of where I've been disheartened and disillusioned again. A lot of the learning that I've experienced throughout my life outside of reading and experiencing things has been becoming disillusioned. And I really viewed psychedelics as catalysts for radical liberation, catalysts for radical societal and cultural liberation. And what I see now is them being neutered, declawed, defanged, and domesticated and used in the narrow confines of healing trauma, healing wounds, addressing issues in your own personal life, really reduced to a fraction of their original potent, profound potential. I see these as systemic disruptors, as subverters of the status quo. And I wonder, I'm like, how can these like powerful instruments of profound soul upheaval be repackaged to conform to the very structures and systems that, in my opinion, are the main causes producing the issues that people are seeking to address? The contradiction is really fascinating. The prevailing focus on navigating our inner worlds, every infinitesimal detail of what's happened to us in our lives, and continually being guided back into like what's coming up for us or what it means to us, or you know the hyper fixation on the individual personal trauma is really just a small part of the healing that needs to occur in our world for us to truly be healthy, balanced, living in cooperative harmony with our environments and with each other. It really fails to recognize, in my opinion, the roots of our suffering, because I really truly believe that we can't be fully functioning, happy, and healthy unless our environment is, and everybody else is in an active process of that as well. The issues and the suffering that we face are deeply embedded, woven to our societal and cultural fabric. So it really gets down to the famous Judeo-Krishnamurti quote that it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I find our society to be extremely sick, yet we keep telling people that they can engage in healing if they address their wounds and their traumas. And if they go within and they look at their parts and they look at what's triggering them and what's coming up for them and how they relate to things. And in my opinion, this does nothing to actually address the deep rot at the core of our reality. And the hyperfixation on these on psychedelics, entheogens, plant medicines, using that word medicine, they're more than that. And I'm not discounting the work that's being done. I'm simply actually just bringing forward something else that I feel that needs to be in conjunction with the current model. They're going to do their thing. All the economic drivers, all of the perverse incentive systems that we're all bound by in this container of the one dominant economic game to rule us all, forces us to comply, forces us to sort of figure out how we can monetize every kind of spiritual healing practice, and forces us to work with people who have resources and money to facilitate those kinds of goals. However, there's an alternative way. There are different ways that I personally believe will help facilitate more of the kind of healing that we actually want to experience. And indigenous cultures knew this. Indigenous cultures didn't say and don't say, go within, what does this mean to you? Go into your personal trauma, your personal experience. Remember the events in your life that triggered you and that caused wounds and trauma when you were 4 years old. And let's unpack that. And what does it mean for you? And how can you apply it in your life? And how can you, transmit this or transform this so that you can then, start a company and make $1 billion, or that you could be a more productive member of society, that you could fit into our model, which is why I use the Krishnamurti quote. And they use these to connect with each other and to connect with their land and the environment and the spirits and the beings that are living, the tree beings, the plant beings, the bird beings, beings and ancestors, living and dead, to connect with each other, to have group cohesion, group values, morals, ethics, a way of looking at the world, obviously an animistic way of looking at the world, which I believe is the way of is what we are living in. And it's only in our great hubris that we create a detrimental world full of suffering when we ignore and we cut off and we separate ourselves and we look at nature as being ornamental, purely aesthetic pleasure, or some trees to line a street on a sidewalk. go to the mountains and you enjoy nature and you look at nature, but it's very the way that most of the world operates in harm in looking at nature is a very separate, ornamental way. And we are nature, yet we live in a society that is continuously, it is engineered to continuously produce forgetfulness, separation, numbness, and coping to manage symptoms rather than treat the root causes. And to some degree, it's like we all kind of know this, but what are we doing about it? Right? The hyperfixation of exploring our inner worlds. It's too individualized. It puts the onus on the individual. All of the pressure and the responsibility and the stress now is like you've got to do your work and you've got to heal, and it's expected, of course, in this the dominant economic drivers of our culture, the incentive systems, and the production, consumption, consumeristic, hyper commodified, monetized environment. Right? This is perfect fit for that. Because how are you going to make money by telling everybody, "Hey, look, we're all one. We're all connected. We're all like God. We're all source. We're all consciousness, everything. Human beings, plants, trees, animals, insects, birds, everything. We're all connected and we are experiencing the one consciousness through the many, through our subjective nodes, learning about ourselves." And that actually what truly makes us happy is when we are together, connected with each other, working towards a common goal, sharing common interests, living in a common way amongst common people. That it doesn't seem like there's a big magic trick to that, but it requires a radical restructuring of our value systems, of our economy. And we're not going to get that from the powers that be. The powers that be are not going to say, "Yeah, you're right. We actually don't really have a lot of legitimate authority, and we're actually creating more problems than necessary. Why don't we just relinquish control and let everybody just kind of organize in a voluntary way to figure out what being alive on this planet really truly means to them?" No, power never gives over power willingly. They're predatory systems that see us all as consumers and producers and want to keep us chasing that carrot on the stick, filling the eternal void that is easily filled with connection and community with all kinds of things in our separate little boxes, isolated, alienated from the world, alienated from our souls, the true purpose and meaning of being, and purchasing things and buying things and one more course or one more service or one more program, or if I get this and if I get that, or if I become this or if I become that. And so I just don't think that the current model of psychedelic therapy, psychedelic healing does anything to address this. And it just actually perpetuates the problem. And what I see is this psychedelic mainstream establishment is turning into the pharmaceutical industry 2.0. There's a co-optation that occurs. Every idea that's born from an original, authentic, good intention eventually erodes and becomes co-opted and becomes another um you know tool, like revolutionary tools. Che Guevara t-shirts is one example, right? Like, and I'm not saying that I agree with like the philosophies there. I'm just saying that that is a representation of something that was a true like, I mean, we could say actually the movement of the anti-war movement of the 60s, and I don't know, grunge and ripped jeans and things like that. We see everything eventually gets subsumed by the world devouring machine of consumption and production and materialism. And then what do we get? We get fake plastic trees. That's what we get. We get second prize. We don't get the real thing. We get substitutions to say, like, all right, will this please you? And there's something called, I think, I forget who mentions this, but it's like the society of the spectacle. Everything becomes a spectacle. Everything becomes a product or a service to be consumed, replacing direct, felt, lived, connecting experiences with representations or simulacras, if I'm using that correctly. Like, um, yeah, just these copies and copies of the real thing. Even revolutionary ideas. We saw that with I remember there was like an ad with the protesters, and Kendall Jenner like comes up to one of the cops and gives him a Pepsi, and he's like, "Oh, wow, Pepsi." It's like they're co-opting of the revolutionary tools like psychedelics, uh and incorporate it into the world that is part, like the spectacle world, the as Neil Postman says, the amusing ourselves to death world. They become tools to kind of like quiet us down and pacify us rather than truly liberate us. And psychedelics, in this hyper medicalized, individualized, compartmentalized, commodified, monetized form, are thus transformed from catalysts for real radical upheaval of societal norms, breaking down borders and boundaries and societal, cultural, systemic change into mechanisms for just simply maintaining the status quo. So that is really what my major gripe is in the context of psychedelics, purely in the context of healing medicines in conjunction with Western psychotherapy, are being employed not as tools of liberation, connection, but as means of keeping us infantilized, dependent, victimized, and depoliticized, and endlessly gazing inward out over every little personal detail of our lives to inspect what we are being taught it could be the root cause of the problem, right? Like there's endless perpetual wars, there's endless problems in the world, and yet we're told to, go within and find an answer there. And it's all, you know, we constantly obsess over our personal histories under the guise of self-improvement while remaining blind to the broader causes of our discontent, causes that are woven into the very fabric of our daily reality and societal structures. And I remember reading Johan Hari's book, Lost Connections, and he makes this, like, people have talked about this before. I'm not the first one to bring this up, but our mental health crisis is less about individual pathologies and more about our disconnection from our environment, our community, and meaningful work, meaningful existence, meaningful ways of being. That our therapeutic culture's fixation on individual trauma totally neglects the societal discontents that are often at the heart of our suffering. We pathologize every single infinitesimal detail of the human experience and then try and come up with isolated, compartmentalized tools to address them, only leading to more side effects, more confusion, more suffering, more suicide, more depression, more anxiety. The list goes on. And many people, in the spiritual communities, resign themselves to the fact and comfort themselves really to the fact that, well, you could just sort of, as Jack Cornfield says, and I love Jack Cornfield, but this quote is like, tend to the part of the garden that you can touch. Control what you can control in your own life, and don't stress yourself out or worry about these bigger things, that you can't control. But I think that while this is like very pragmatic and sound, it's just fundamentally insufficient for me. It implies that the systemic issues that we faced are so vast and so daunting and so commonplace, and we just kind of accept them. They're beyond our influence or correction. And I challenge that. I challenge that. I think rather than coping strategies, we really need a revolution in thought, in practice, and a radical revisioning of society. And James Hillman said that his hope is to see therapy be actually a seat of revolution. He makes a great point in one of his lectures about driving to his therapist's office and experiencing the anger and the rage of the big trucks on the road that are, swerving into his lane and causing all this pollution. And he gets to his therapist's office and he's like so worked up about these trucks, and the therapist is trained to guide him into like the internal experience. Like, what do the trucks mean to you? What's beyond the trucks? What's deeper? Where does the anger truly lie? And Hillman, in his classic, curmudgeon-y type of way, is like, all of a sudden now we're spinning off into this infinitely complex web about what happened to me and my father when I was 4. What about the goddamn trucks? Right? What about the nail that's in the toe of the collective body of our world? Our world is shaped by power structures that prioritize coping and superficial adjustment methods over genuine collective well being. It includes the medicalization of psychedelics, where they are used in this narrow therapeutic palliative care kind of way. And really, what I would like to see is more of us understanding that the environment, the water that we swim in, is toxic and making us sick, right? It's like if you came across a fish in a river who is sick, and then you just simply address, like, oh, well, what's wrong with this fish? And forget about the whole toxic river. So that's what I get really worked up about. This is what I really feel passionately about. In a lot of ways, we have hit the iceberg. The Titanic is up in the air, and we're staying on board, going, well, what's coming up for you around this? What does this mean to you? Rather than addressing the actual imminent danger that is occurring on a daily basis. And it's more so than that. In our society, it's very sophisticated. We live in a very sophisticated mechanism of control where we're for someone like me, who I would say grew up lower middle class, still am to many degrees, if that's even a thing, but not struggling to survive, not struggling to, well, I don't know, sometimes it feels like that, but okay, doing okay, that most of us are so comfortable where it's like not really, it's not like we have like the boot of the despots at our neck, at our throats. We're not living in a war-torn zone, but there is a deeper psychological warfare happening on a very subtle level, where I think, Henry David Thoreau has this quote where he says, that most men live lives of quiet desperation. There's a quiet desperation. There's a quiet resignation. There's a quiet yearning. There's a quiet erosion of the human soul. Be like just living in the environments that we live in. Most of the environments that we live in are just kind of ugly and brutal and cold, and sidewalks and lights and light pollution and air pollution and trucks and cars and streets and roads and stroads and all like highways and factories and buildings, glass and metal. And these are not the environments that really cause our nervous systems to feel relaxed and attuned. And I think there was a scientific study that said as soon as you are immersed fully in a natural environment, trees, birds, plants, mountains, the mountain air, wherever it is, wherever you are, as soon as you are immersed in a natural environment, like in a forest or something like that, that your nervous system resets after about 90 minutes to be more in accordance to the balance of nature. And really, at the heart of my argument is like, we need to live in accordance to who we really are, because a lot of the ways that we're being crammed into fitting into living in is not in accordance with the true essence and nature of our being. Yeah, I guess we can kind of do it. I guess we can adapt to it, but what do we want to adapt to? I think in Charles Eisenstein's book, he makes the point um, that one of his books, I forget which one, but I had a similar thought as well, parallel thinking around this. Like, yeah, we can all like live in like bubbled dome cities where there's, a perfect ratio of oxygen rich atmosphere being pumped in through big machines. And we could probably create and invent all kinds of solutions to what we're doing to the world and what we're causing to ourselves. But do we want to live in that kind of world? Or do you want to live in a kind of world where you go outside and it's nice and there's birds chirping and there's trees and there's a beautiful environment and there's people and you can easily walk places without fear of getting killed by raging 60-mile-per-hour cars down the streets? That you could ride a bike and people know you and you know them, and there's community functions and gatherings and people have, you know, I would argue that that's a better world to live in because I've experienced that world. I've experienced that in times where I'm deeply connected with people, living in a temporary setting of community and reciprocity and harmony and balance and equity and sharing and caring, and in harmony with the land and all that's around us, taking just enough that we need to be able to do what we need to do and no more. Yeah, I remember also seeing something around some healer, medicine man, shaman's quote around like we identify anything as sickness as being excess. And we live in a world of extreme excess and waste, and it's not making us happier. It's not making us any happier. We can't continually keep trying to solve problems in a compartmentalized fashion with the same level of thinking that created these problems. We just can't do it. The water is polluted, the air is polluted, the soil is polluted, our food is poisoned, our workplaces are detrimental to our health. The demands and the pressures and the stress put upon people is increasing every day. Depression, anxiety, sickness, violence, unwillingness to hear other people's thoughts, opinions, attacking. The environmental and societal decay is a direct product of the systems that we uphold and that we perpetuate, the systems that are driven by profit at the expense of all else. The amount of hostility and violence and aggression in our language, in our symbols, in our imagery, it is baked into the very fabric of what we are in. It is in many ways the man-made abstract world that we find ourselves marching to the tick tock of the master clock, which is an abstraction in and of itself, is just creating an ungodly amount of stress and anxiety and pressures, and we are not addressing the root causes. I'm not satisfied by tending to the symptoms, because there's going to be a time where we're not going to be able to do that anymore because the root causes will destroy us all. I truly believe that. I initially believed that psychedelics could help awaken us to the horrors of our existential plight and catalyze us into meaningful, action, diverse opportunities for novel change, and decentralized pockets of all kinds of different ways of gathering and organizing. And I mean, that's truly the world that I would like to see, is a world where we are free to organize in a diverse set of ways in decentralized systems that are truly serving the people that live there in those places with those values, without, predatory, having to participate in humiliating actions of, I personally feel that it's humiliating to have to sacrifice your authentic self to survive in this world. There's so many people that they work jobs or they engage in things. They're wearing so many masks they don't even know who they are, because they're conforming to who they've told they need to be to survive. You go to work and you're like, hey, oh yeah, how's the weather? All right, good. Yeah, well, great. Oh. And then you get on sales calls or whatever you're doing. You become indoctrinated to accept this as normal. And I personally feel that there's more than that, and that that's not what this life is about, and that we have distorted this reality through sophisticated techniques of manipulation and control. And yeah, it's like, well, well, if you don't like it, why don't you leave or something like that, right? We see that there's nowhere to go to. There's nowhere to go to. This disease infects our entire world. And I really like, Hillman and his applying archetypal psychology and therapy and the ideas to the collective, to the systems, to the institutions, not so hyper fixated on individuals and their personal issues and their relational issues. I think the transformation of psychedelics from these great tools of personal and societal liberation being relegated to therapeutic commodities really just also does a good job of like normalizing this as another sort of pharmaceutical industry model of like, take this, do this, follow these practices, and you'll be well. And I just want to slow down a bit and make sure I really am circling back to supporting the main thesis, the main argument here, and to provide more, I actually want to read a little bit from this great book by James Hillman and Michael Ventura called "We've Had 100 Years of Psychotherapy and the World's Getting Worse," written in about 1992, and yeah, well, here we are. There's a passage in here where James Hillman says, and he's writing to Michael Ventura, as the book is a series of correspondence between the two. If therapy imagines its task to be that of helping people cope and not protest, to adapt and not rebel, to normalize their oddity and to accept themselves and work within your situation, make it work for you, rather than refuse the unacceptable, then therapy is collaborating with what the state wants, docile plebes. So Hillman has some great, the whole book is fantastic, and he has some great lectures on the topic too. I believe one of them is called The Politics of Feeling. But to his point, I would agree that the current state of the mainstream psychedelic establishment and the mainstream therapeutic establishment are following right in the footsteps of the pharmaceutical establishment, which are all in accordance to reinforcing the status quo of the state and our corporate overlords. Really have to let that sink in, because I feel that sometimes it can be a little bit jarring maybe to some people, or let's say triggering. And I think that that is actually an issue that we need to deal with, is that we need to come out of the cave into reality and really understand, yeah, it really is this bad. Because I feel that a lot of the models of healing want to shy away from that because it's too big and it's too scary. And it's a little bit more comforting and a little bit more manageable to address our own individual personal traumas, wounds, which again, I'm not discounting. I'm just saying that there's more to it than that. There's more to it than that. And yeah, circling back to the beginning where I started this whole thing, I was inspired by Timothy Leary's turn on, tune in, and drop out. I was inspired by this radical rejection of the everything, right? And Hillman says that there is value in empty protests, in saying, I don't know what the solutions are, but I don't like what's going on. And I could say that, like, psychedelics and the way that they have been approached and looked at in the realm of healing has severed its connection from the rest of the world and said, just focus on what's going on for you and your parts and your traumas and your wounds, right? Without addressing, there's this great meme, I think my friend Adam from Healing posted a long time ago, where there's like a person in a therapist's office, and through the window you could see the world literally like on fire outside and chaos raging. And he's like, so tell me, what's the problem exactly? Where does your stress and anxiety come from, right? And there's also a general sense of kind of apathy, I feel, too, with look, I'm a huge fan of humor. I like being funny, I like having fun. And I also feel that there's a sort of a sense of like apathy, or like, well, what could we really do about it? But just kind of like point out what's going on and kind of be like, oh yeah, let's just, yeah, the world's burning and there's nothing really we can do. It's chaos and it's a nightmare out there. So let's just try and live the best lives that we can while the ship goes down. And I don't know, there might be something to that. I feel that I kind of oscillate between resigning to the way things are and just trying to enjoy and live my life to the best that I can, and also this fire that I have for rebellion and dissent, and saying, I do not accept things as they are. And that I know that with enough people motivated and passionate and driven, that we can affect real change. And so I kind of go back and forth between the two, or they simultaneously, paradoxically exist in the same frequency that I inhabit. Yeah, I mean, like, circling back to the origin point, it's like I saw psychedelics as catalysts that could help awaken us to the horrors of our predicament, to make changes, to say we don't tolerate this. We are going to divest from this model and let this machine that is being thrust upon us to starve, and focus on creating appealing alternatives, which I do think can be done. However, they have to be done in such a way that doesn't encroach upon or get too close, if you will, to poking the belly of the beast, right? So I think it's a very interesting kind of paradox in a way too. But I am a big fan of Buckminster Fuller and his famous quote of, "You don't change things by fighting against the current establishment, the current status quo. You change things by creating appealing alternatives that attract and invite people to say, well, that model just is obsolete. Why would I engage with that model of being?" His full quote is that you create alternatives that render the status quo model obsolete. So it's like, anything that we would engage. It's like, why would you use something that is obsolete or inefficient? Why not move towards the thing that is appealing and offering things in an alternative way, challenging and pushing forward with innovative ways of organizing and being. Um, yeah. So really the main the main driver of a lot of the videos that I'm going to make are going to be around this central point. And this first video was really addressing what I feel to be as an insider in the psychedelic renaissance, critiquing it from inside, not from outside, not from somebody who's never had experiences with these things. I've had powerful, profound experiences with multitudes of altered state consciousness experiences. I've been a part of groups. I've been a part of movements. I've been a part of all kinds of things. And this critique, this observation, comes from the inside. I feel that there's the economic drivers, the perverse incentive systems, the breakneck pace to get these things out into the world in whatever way that they can. Oh, okay, like as long as it passes, as long as it's like for healing, and we're leaving out so much, and there's a lot of problems no matter where you go. There's a lot of people that are driven and have their own personal agendas and their own feelings and beliefs around things. And maybe this kind of message is not for them. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. And this video is by no means an effort to say stop them from doing what they're doing, but really just shining a light on the broader spectrum of existence and our place in a world where we are trying to live happy, healthy, balanced lives. And how can we best do that? You know, how can we best do that? So, as potent as these substances like psychedelics are, they have become absorbed into what you can call the capitalist machinery. Their revolutionary potency is diluted and repackaged as tools for productivity and adaptation, and not integration, but assimilation into the agenda that serves the main drivers of our world, the powers that be of our world. And we continuously find ourselves in a dysfunctional society. And maybe you're not living in this kind of reality because you have the means and the money and the resources to continuously go on retreats and continuously to attend Reiki healings and ecstatic dances and cacao ceremonies. And you find yourself in a pretty good place. Well, what happens when what would happen if you didn't have the money to participate and to go to week-long retreats in Bali or Costa Rica or Peru 5 times a year or something like that, right? The irony is pretty profound. While psychedelics could serve as powerful agents for exposing and dismantling structures of oppression and alienation, their incorporation into the mainstream medical establishment and the commercial frameworks of the therapeutic industry often they end up reinforcing the values and the incentive systems of those very structures. And we perpetuate the cycle. We keep it going. And I personally feel that we need more of a resurgence of the true soul liberating experience, an ecodelic liberating experience, and theogenic liberating experience, a merging of the eagle and the condor, the archaic revival. This idea has been with us forever. And I believe that as Victor Hugo says, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. We must foster environments where psychedelics are recognized not just as medicines in clinical settings, but as sacraments for ceremony, for ritual, for connecting us with the earth and all the beings that inhabit it, with each other, and for fun, for fun, for fun, for fun, for play. I mean, there's a reason why, psychedelics can help treat depression and anxiety and all these things. If you've ever taken psychedelics with your friends at a music festival, the more beautiful worlds our hearts know is possible. You feel it. You've seen it. You've experienced it. It's like, well, duh, of course they can help with depression and stuff, because they shatter the veil of illusions that we're all living in this carefully manufactured and curated prison. This is a carefully manufactured, curated largest outdoor prison that we're living in. And you realize, like, whoa, okay, I see behind the curtain, and there's more. And what really matters is my friends right here in front of me, my family, my loved ones, my relationship, the earth, being in balance, being in harmony with it. So yeah, they help with depression. Yeah, they help with things like that. But it's because they are liberators into a world of joy and peace and fun and laughter and excitement and euphoria and bliss and love and connection and empathy. That's what they do, but they can't, that spirit gets crushed by the soul devouring machine of the world that forces us all to fit into one way of being, to march along to the same beat of the drum, of the clock, the tick tock of the clock, the marching orders, the ugly environments, the not like the aesthetics, the design, the infrastructure. It's all geared towards keeping us separate, isolated, alone. And that glow, that psychedelic glow, will fade. And then people are being, oh, take microdoses and you could feel better. Well, it's just another pill to take every day. We're not addressing the core root cause at the rot in our world. I don't believe that we are really actually addressing it, because what that requires is sacrifice. What that requires is getting out from behind the comfort, the quiet comfort, the subtle uneasiness, but the just amount of just the right amount of comfort to not, burn it all down and start new, and just the right amount of distress to get just a little bit of care to keep managing and to keep marching on. But I think that we can reclaim these profound tools, these as catalysts for new ways of thinking, radical change, and really resist and reject commodification and these things that really strip psychedelics of their transformative power and altered state consciousness experiences. We have to really remember and revive the countercultural ethos. Like, psychedelics and entheogens should be inherently countercultural. They should not be reinforcing the economy and the status quo belief systems. They, in my opinion, are the antithesis of that. They are liberators, liberating us into an infinitely imaginative world beyond the borders and boundaries of what we can conceive, into limitless possibilities of diverse and novel options of ways of being, awakening in us our soul's cry for liberation and to be seen and to be heard. But, this is a large task, right? Like, in order for us to truly thrive in an environment like this, it really does take us not casting ourselves as victims, but actually stepping forward into the world and saying, what can we do? And that's what this video series, that's what this show, whatever you want to call it, that's what this message here through video transmission is aiming to do, is to say, how do you feel? What do you think about this? What do you want to do about it? And what can we do about it? And I'd love to just get like groups together and start riffing and jamming on ideas and coming up with ways to find resources to affect change and actually start to reimagine, activate the imagination again. That is something that we've been lost, we've lost too, is this like the severing of the connection with the wide, limitless, infinite imagination. It's like psychedelics are tools that can heal your trauma. Therapy is good to go to so you can heal your wounds and your trauma. It's like, where is like the beautiful, bountiful art and imagination that can be applied to address the systemic institutional issues that we face, the real existential threats that are facing our world today? And so this video is hopefully the first video in a series of videos that aims to tackle issues and questions like this. What can we do to group together to come up with creative, innovative solutions to create appealing alternatives that render the status quo systems obsolete? What can we do to spark passion and fire and desire in others to be involved in our real world on a day-to-day basis rather than infinitely lost in the complex web of never-ending personal trauma, wounds, and healing? While also acknowledging that sometimes what we need to do is go in and heal blockages and do that, but we could do it better together in community with each other, empowering each other. I don't think that most people, in fact, I would argue, we don't really know what it really means. Most people are alienated from their families. They don't even know their parents or their kids. We live in a world that is geared, like it runs on separation. It runs on isolation because that's how we're easily more able to be controlled and to buy into all the other crap that they try and sell us to fill those holes. So I aim to create interest and spark thought and new ways of thinking to really put action to where the words and the thoughts are and actually start creating the world that we want to live in or the worlds that we want to live in. Because again, the main thesis of this video is that we can't be healthy and heal unless we are approaching everything with a model of healthy and healing. Our environments are the main causes, our structures, our institutions, our belief systems, our values, the incentive systems, everything in our world, in our society, our culture, in this modern civilization is geared to keep us separate. And the main method of healing with therapy and with psychedelic healing is individualized, medicalized, and contextualized in a personal, individual experience when we really need to come out of our inner caves into the world, organize and group with each other, and focus on ways that we can live in reciprocity and harmony and in balance with the world and reject these oppressive systems of domination, control, coercion, and force, and say, we will not participate in this way. We will not perpetuate this system and participate in this way. And we will until we find new ways to do it. But the goal is to find new ways to do it. And I think that everything was invented by people. So why can't people get together to invent new ways? I feel pretty confident and I have a lot of faith in that. Thank you to everybody. I hope that you really enjoyed this video, and I want to hear from you what your thoughts are, what you're thinking. Please engage in the comment section. I'll respond to everything that I can when I can. Please like the video, share it. Please subscribe, hit the bell notification icon to get notified when I release new videos. Do all that stuff to get this message out and more messages like this. I'll be doing more videos, not focused solely on psychedelics or on healing, but in the worlds that I'm in, they'll be geared around or informed by them nonetheless. But I'll be talking about all things that I feel passionately about in our world with this core kind of thesis at the heart of it all. Um, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And let me know, like, what else do you want to see and want to hear about, and what questions do you have, and all those kinds of things. I want to create an active engagement with us, and eventually create a group of maybe 9 to 12 of us that would meet on a regular basis to dive deeper into these topics with creating real, orienting in action plans and real brainstorming and soul storming for putting a lot of these thoughts and ideas into practice. So thank you, everyone. I've been Mike Brancatelli. You've been you. Thanks for enjoying this. Let me know what you thought of it, and much love to you all out there.